Right, in this tutorial series, we're going to look at making a two-player game where this will be local, not multiplayer, where each player gets to use different keys on the keyboard to interact with their player locally on one screen. And so back in Construct 3 is that we're going to be using Kenny's Art Deluxe pack. This is an older set that he created way back in 2014, but it's got a lot of different graphics to use, and it's a different size than the previous ones that we've used, so that we can see how do we actually make the different tile maps and work with different sprite objects at different sizes. So this is the one that we're going to be using, and we're going to download this asset pack. As well as using a different character. In the other previous tutorials, we used the alien characters that Kenny provided. I'm going to use these Toon characters that he has that are a little bit different. We're not going to be going through the animation this time in this set of tutorials, but we will use a different character just so you can see the process when using something different that's not coming from a specific asset pack generally. So make sure that we download that one as well. I'll put the link to both of these in the show notes so you have access to that information. And for this one, we're going to use the 1080p landscape preset. This is full HD, 1920 by 1080. This will be the size of our viewport as well as the size of our canvas, so both players can see the canvas at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and create my project. And then we're going to create two different types of games. The first one is going to be you versus the other opponent, where you're going to collect different items, and the first person to a set amount of items wins. And then we'll create a second game where you have to work together as a team to accomplish that level. So in this very first one here, this layout is I'm going to go ahead and rename this, and I'm going to call this collecting game, because you and the opponent have to be collecting items to win. And when you use that preset, our layout's quite large. We want to make sure that we make this layout size the same size as this viewport. So this is going to be 1920 by 1080. That way both players can see the actual playing area together. We're going to start off by creating our tile map. So I'm going to right click and I want to insert a new object, and I want to be inserting a tile map. And so for each different game, I'm going to use a different tile map, so we have that practice working through using different tile maps at different spots. And so I'll call this the collecting game tile map, and then I need to go find that tile map. So we'll look through grabbing that tile map from downloads. Going to go into the asset pack. You got different ones to work with: the base pack, the building expansion, candy, extra animations and enemies, the ice expansion. So I'm just going to go ahead and go into the base pack, and then into tiles is where the item is located at. The tile sheet that we're going to look for is at the very, very bottom. And so this tile sheet, these are going to be 70 by 70, but they also have, which looks like a 2-pixel margin in between each tile. So when I have my new tile map on here, I need to make sure that I'm changing the tile width and height right away. This is going to be 70 by 70, and there is a spacing. So I'm going to do 2 on the X and 2 on the Y. I want to make sure that I'm always snapping to grid, showing the grid for placement. I'm also going to go 70 by 70 as well. so that I can go ahead and go through drawing my layout here. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes and I'll see you back. Now, after you had some time to put together your tile map layout, you should be at the same process that I am. I went ahead and I put just blocks sporadically in different areas, and the reason why I'm doing this is because we're going to spawn in the player at different positions. I'm also going to be using some moving platforms, using the sign behavior, and giving room for our collectibles. So I didn't want to have a lot of crowding in my level itself here. Next, I'm going to go ahead and include those collectible objects. So I'm going to right click and make sure you're on the arrow to get off the tile map. Then we can right click, insert new object. This will be a sprite object. This will be our collectible. Now what you choose to collect is up to you, but if you go back to the base pack, in the items folder, you got different items to choose from. You can collect coins, they've got gems, they've got keys to collect, or stars. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose the star in this case. So the player's going to collect the star. Now the goal is to have the player collect the first 1 to 5. So if I just put 5 items on this level, what happens if one player gets 3 and one gets 2? The level never ends. So at some point, somebody has to get to 5. So we need more than 5, but enough that both players could ultimately get close to being together. So I'm going to do 10. So I'm going to place 10 different collectibles on the level. And that way, there's enough for both players to get to 5 first. So I've got the collectibles on there. Let's go ahead and I'm going to add those moving platforms. So I'm going to insert a new object. This is going to be a sprite object. And then inside, if I go back to the base pack, back into tiles, and I look at all the different tiles that are available to us. Let's see if they have something that's very small that we can use. No. Right here, this bridge. I'm going to go ahead and use this bridge. Now with this bridge, you want to double check the collider, because we only want the player standing on top. There's a lot of open area here they call white space right here. So I'm going to want to make sure these are way out on the very edge. I can go ahead and get rid of that point there. And I'm just going to go all the way to the corner, all the way to the corner, and that one in the middle. So it's a nice flat box there. So make sure the collider's around there. You can also work on changing the origin point. Right now it's at the center. I'm going to put that, and I'm going to leave that one alone for a minute. And I'm going to put one that's going to be moving up and down right here. I'm also going to put one over here, and then one over there. Make sure you're saving your work as you go. And the last item for setup before testing is the player. So we need to insert player 1 and player 2. So these are going to be sprites. So player 1. And so from the Toon pack, I'm going to use the robot. So I'm going to go in the PNG folder, and I'm going to go in poses, and I'm going to grab just one of these poses here. It doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to make sure the origin is set to bottom. I'm going to check its bounding box there. I'm going to set to bounding box, and then I'm going to fix the bounding box so it's just at around the torso of the player. There we go. So player 1 for right now. Start player 1 there, and then we'll add in player 2. And for this one, I'm going to go with the zombie. Back to PNG folder, poses. And I'll use this one right here. I'm going to fix it to bounding box. Now, to make sure you can select both items at the same time, if you pick the first box, hold the Control or Command key on the Mac, select the second one, and that will allow you to move 2 different image points at the same time with the arrow keys. I'm also going to make sure the origin is also set to bottom. And there we have it. There's our setup for the first video. Having a layout size setup for 1920 by 1080. We have a tile map set up in here. We have our collectible objects, and we have our player 1 and 2. And lastly, what you can do is, instead of this gray background, I can go to my layers panel, and I can go to the background color. I'm going to give this a light. Let's go more of a blue. There we go. Just you can change the background up if you like as well. Save your game, and then we'll come back in the next video and take a look at how we can collect these items.